Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Uh, Today, I will present my mini research proposal about teaching English pronunciation technique at SMPN 3 Maruriawa in Paninjong Village Maruriawa District, Sopen Regency, yaitu pengajaran teknik pelafalan bahasa Inggris di SMP Negeri 3 Maruriawa di Desa Panincong, Kecamatan Maruriawa, Kabupaten Sopeng. And before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Rukawi. I'm from English Education A, Faculty of Language and Literature at the State University of Makassar. In my PowerPoint proposal, there are three tables of content. The first is chapter 1, introduction, include background, statement of problem, objective, significance, and research scope. And the next one is chapter 2, literature review, include related ideas and conceptual framework. And the next is chapter 3, research method, include type of research, place and time of the research, research design, population and sample, technique of data collection, technique and last is technique of data analysis. Okay, the first is chapter 1, introduction. The first part is the background. This study aims to determine the teaching of pronunciation technique prepared by students at SMP Negeri 3 Maruriawa. Pronunciation is an important element in learning oral skill in a second language. However, it is a rule in adult English programming varies, and the amount of time and effort devoted to it appears to depend in a large part on language teachers. This means that it might or might not be a part of regular classroom activity or student self-study. However, students often see pronunciation as very important and a priority for them. Willing, 1988, page 1. In the history of teaching pronunciation, there are three main approaches in the teaching pronunciation, especially the intuitive imitative approach, the analytic linguistic approach, and the integrative approach. Charles Murcia, 1996, Chen, 2007, page 2. On the other hand, EFL professor consider pronunciation to be relatively important, partly because of its value for easy to understand communication. Morley, 1994, page 2. Pronunciation is thought to meet the special need to learn. There is a dual focus or oral communication program where micro-level interaction is focused on linguistic. Example, phonetic phonological competencies through a segmental and super-segmental practice, and at the macro level pays more attention to communicative elements. So this is the reason why the researcher choose the title, because the researcher want to find out whether grade 3 teachers were able to provide good teaching training to students. And the reason why I was interested in this title was because I thought English pronunciation technique it is very important for students, especially students in grade 3, so that at least they have a good and a correct pronunciation of English. Okay, the next is statement of problem. From the description explained in the background, the following problem can be identified. The first one is teacher really use a teaching technique in a teaching pronunciation in foreign language classes. The next one is to observe whether the pronunciation teaching technique in a foreign language class can improve the students' pronunciation technique well. The last one is to observe what a teaching technique student prefer in learning pronunciation in foreign language classes. Okay, the next is uh, objectives. Based on the formulation of the problem described above, it can be seen that the research objectives are as follows. The first one is to see if the students have improved in learning correct pronunciation technique and language classes through the techniques their teacher used. The next is this is to determine whether the use of technique used by the teacher in the teaching pronunciation or pronunciation in foreign language classes has been able to improve the quality of student uh, pronunciation as a guide or their capital to continue to a higher level. Okay, the next is significance. A result of this study are expected to provide benefit for teacher and student both theoretically and practically, which are described as follow. The first is theoretical. The result of this study are expected to support theory related to pronunciation or pronunciation teaching technique in language classes, especially for grade 3 students of SMP Negeri 3 Marorewa, which they can use as capital or proficiency to continue to a higher level. The next one is practical. From the result of the study, it hope that it can provide knowledge to teachers to pay more attention to their student in improving their pronunciation skill in foreign language classes. There is also hope that this will encourage students to continue to improve their skill in the accuracy of English pronunciation. Okay, the next is research scope. And this study only includes a small number of students for the subject studied. This research focuses on how to apply good and correct techniques in teaching pronunciation or pronunciation of foreign languages so that students can improve their skill in English pronunciation and students can show rapid progress in the field of teaching correct pronunciation in foreign language classes. The population in this study were students of SMP Negeri 3 Marorewa and two teachers who taught at school in the study. 15 students from each class were randomly selected. Okay, yeah, the next is chapter 2, literature review. The first part is related ideas. Pronunciation. Pronunciation is an important element in learning oral skill in a second language. However, students often see pronunciation as very important and a priority for them. Willing 1988, page 1 studies conducted by Brown 1992, Clary 1993, Fraser 2000, and Yedes 2001, page 1 emphasizes that teacher in a program with some difficulties in meeting their student pronunciation learning needs and show that many language teachers tend to avoid dealing with pronunciation due to a lack of confidence, skill, and knowledge. So Chamorcia 1996, Chen 2007, page 2. There are three main approaches to pronunciation instruction. Namely, the first one is intuitive imitative approach. Intuitive imitative approach assume that the student's skill in listening and imitating the rhythm and sound of the target language will lead to development boundaries of acceptable speech without any intervention, explicit information. The next is analytic linguistic approach. In analytic linguistic, the emphasis is on the explicit intervention of pedagogical speech in language acquisition. The next is the integrative approach. Pronunciation is practiced in a meaningful task-based activities. Learners use listening activities that focus on pronunciation to facilitate pronunciation learning. Okay, the next is pronunciation model. English is a language that is not only owned by one country, despite playing it as an international language or lingua franca. Yeah, English can now be found in many parts of the country. Teacher might draw this distinction between British and American. American parent, for example, by teaching it, the student will be able to broaden their knowledge of their variation of the English language. We can say grass, grass, grass refers to British English, or say grace, grace refers to American English. Okay, the next is factors affecting pronunciation. There are various factors that can affect a child pronunciation. Therefore, there needs to be an important word for a teacher in teaching correct pronunciation techniques. The first is native language. Sorry. This is the most influential factor when a student learn a new language. Teacher need to check notes their pronunciation difficulties so that they can understand and pronounce it better. The next is age. In general, children under puberty are very resistant to change in a native speaker-like voice when it presents with authentic context. Beyond puberty, a well adult will almost certainly retain a foreign accent. There are no particular advantages associated with age. The next is the importance of teaching pronunciation techniques. Pronunciation teaching should be promoted to students. Pronunciation are often inadequate in terms of difficulty level for different levels of proficiency of students. In their scope is limited. Zipira Kozlowska 2006. In other words, when studying pronunciation at a various stage, students of different age, cognitive cognitive abilities, and they may also have different goals. The statement serve as a reference for a teacher who need to take action that direct their students to achieve their goals. Okay, the next is proposed teaching technique. Pronunciation according to Morland 1999 in Murcia 2006. There are 4 goals are realistic in the teaching pronunciation are. The first is functional clarity. Define a spoken English where the accents, if any, does not distract the listener because a student achieve a pronunciation without accents, we prepare our student for failure if we strive for accuracy like a native speaker. The next is functional transmission. This is the learner's ability to function successfully in the specific communicative situation he faces. If we teach how to use a pauses, tone, movement, and stress to achieve a communicative goals, they will achieve many functional communication skills. The next is increase self-confidence. A student must have self-confidence in order to speak and be understood. Sorry. The next is monitoring skills. Speech by teaching students to pay attention to what they are saying and what they are saying. We help our students make better use of the feedback they receive. Okay, the next is conceptual framework, in which the English pronunciation teacher must always give the best for his student. This can be done through the application interesting pronunciation management technique. However, based on observation, student pronunciation is still lacking. Reading a book and an article is also important so that we can have a lot of inspiration in designing activities to improve students' pronunciation. Related to pronunciation in teaching, and a teacher can add several activities in the classroom that are focused on improving students' pronunciation. By modifying it, it can help students to pronounce a word correctly. The researcher used Action research to improve student pronunciation. The research steps include planning, and with several questions will be prepared to be answered by students through a pre-test, acting in which a direct interview will be conducted with several students and a teacher, after which the result obtained will be observed and reflected. Okay, the next is chapter 3, research methods. The first part is type of research. This research uses a type of qualitative research consisting of direct observation and observation or direct interview, whereby giving this pre-test to find out the extent to which student abilities regarding a good pronunciation techniques. In addition, direct observation or direct interview will be carried out from each class representative. This is intended better understand what the problem student experience in learning pronunciation technique. Okay, the next is a place and a time of research. This research will be conducted at SMP Negeri 3 Marudawa, which is located next to the Peninsula Market, or to be present in the Peninsula Village, Marudawa District, Southern Regency. This research will be conducted in, I forget to change this month. And this is, I want to use January 2022, when the teaching and learning process returns to normal. I am sorry about that. Okay, the next is a research design. Research design is what is needed to conducting research. The design used is an experimental design where this includes several aspects, including the first is planning. And the step one are define some of the problem and develop teaching action that can make a difference. And in this case, the teacher has an important role in improving student understanding of pronunciation techniques. We agree to apply dialogue techniques to find out the potential of students. Okay, the next is implementation. As I said above, using the technique of dialogue between the friends using the help of exciting dictionary or translation application to make it easier for students to fix their mistake easily. The next is analysis, where in the case I will analyze the result of the dialogue technique between friends, whether they give a lot of chance to the student pronunciation techniques or vice versa. The next is population and sample. The population of this study was students in grade 1, 2, and 3 in SMP Negeri 3 Marudawa, totaling around 345 students, each class being divided into representative only. The sample should only include about 15 students from each class, where each student will do a pre-test and direct interview to find out what common problem they face in learning pronunciation technique. The next is data collection technique. The first is in this study, the data technique used were technique in the form of pre-test and direct observation techniques or direct interviews that is done to test student abilities in a pronunciation lesson. The first is pre-test. This is one of the first steps to get a survey of what the problems students are having with good pronunciation technique, where the result of this survey will be summarized and used as a guide in a presentation of material by the teacher. The next is direct observation or direct interview, where in this step several questions will be given about what common problems or obstacles for students in learning good pronunciation technique, or where student will be asked to provide a reason why this is problem for them. Okay. The next is data analysis technique. This data analysis technique using data collection techniques, data reduction, testing the data obtained from a student of SMP Negeri 3 Marodiawa will be used to analyze the problem faced by student. Where the data analysis technique was obtained from given a pre-test to each student where students were asked to fill out a survey related to problem in a pronunciation technique. In addition, direct observation or interview were conducted with a student where students were given several questions and students were expected to answer what they experienced and give a reason why it was said. And then in the end result is conclusion drawing and verification. Okay, I think that's all from my presentation about my mini research proposal, more and less. Please forgive me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.